name is David Adkins, and I am proud and honored to be friends with Keith Andrews. Catch me in his entire list of videos. Trust me, you want to be there.
Welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. Today is 658. I'm here as a good friend, Dave Adkins. I just want to say thank you for being with us.
How you doing?
No, it's a real honor and privilege to have you here.
Oh, I totally agree. It's a privilege to be here. I have been quite busy, actually. I've just finished another interview just today. So, yeah, I'm getting 2 interviews in one day. I don't mind it.
Actually, surprisingly, you're my third interview for today, so I'm not complaining.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Now, for people who want to know who Dave Adkins is, you are a book author, public speaker, voiceover, professional voiceover, and you are actually a podcaster in your own rights, plus you're a video game designer.
Well, actually, it was a card game designer and actually a tabletop game designer. I've done both. I have my own game listed on the net, so you can actually buy one of 4 decks available, and I've got 3 more decks actually coming out. So, yeah, and I've got distribution all the way across the nation right now, which is amazing. Kind of weird, if you know the honest truth about it. I never thought I'd be in this position. I thought that there again, when I was cut from working at all, I thought that, that was the end of it. I was going to just die alone and at home. I mean, let's be honest. When they cut your knees out from under you, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, going, what am I supposed to do? But amazingly enough, having a double transplant was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's one of those things where I can't knock anybody anymore. If they've got an ability to reach out and do anything whatsoever with their life, then I'm all for it, and I'm all for pushing them forward because I'm living example. I literally had a double transplant. From the double transplant, they told me I'd never work again, and I would just be living on Section 8 housing. And from there, I found out about convention work. From convention work, I went to public speaking. From public speaking and guest appearances at colleges and conventions, I wrote my first book, got nominated for 2 awards, and that immediately jump-started everything from being into like acting. I've helped with 3 different films. I'm sound engineer on 2 of them. I'm a gaff and a gripper on another one. I have done so much now. It's astounding to me. It's hard to imagine, but I'm coaching 2 people right now on acting and voice acting. So it's quite an amazing leap when you consider what I was doing as a normal job to what I am now.
Now, for people who want to know, did you actually get your knees cut off, or is that just like a metaphor?
That was a metaphor, because here's the problem with the double transplant. When I got out of the hospital, I tried to find a job. I tried everything. I've been to college 7 times. There had to be something I could have done. No, I was told over and over and over again I was an insurance risk. And I went to college for multiple things, but there again, one of them was car mechanics. So, yeah, me being a mechanic with a double transplant ain't happening. And then the other one was computer repair and computer programmer. But ever since I went for those classes, things have changed so much. I'm out of date, and I would have to take reschooling to actually get to the point B, and I could actually do that. And so I'm still built my own PC above and beyond, and help a lot of other people with their computer programming issues. But me trying to work off of that with my skill level, that there's a lot of them that won't have.
So you would say you're more like a video game hacker?
Oh, geez. I've done Blender 3D, which I am, oh man, that program is so far beyond. People that, anybody that wants to do video games, animation, 2D or 3D, doesn't matter. If you want to do films in anything line of 3D or FX, yes, go for Blender 3D. It's got so much capability on such a low programming curve. It's amazing. And if you know Adobe, under any circumstance, it's got a very similar layout.
No, absolutely. You know, the one thing I always wanted to redo was my when I worked over at North Face, I met this security guy, and he said, you know, my friend can hack anything. So I said, well, I have I have an Xbox. Can you put Nintendo, Super Nintendo? I should have asked for Game Boy on there. I should have asked for N64, but I said, can I have Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega? Yes. And now recently I was thinking back, because the thing's almost 15 years old, waiting for the damn thing to stop working. And I was going to say, you're good. Can you hack my PlayStation? I want to put Super
Depending
Nintendo.
on the capabilities and the equipment I would need to do it, yes. Because I studied the stuff from way, way back. We're talking about Atari to Super Nintendo level.
Right.
So we're talking about all the equipment and the C++, DOS, and a few minor Python scripts and a few JavaScripts. And so under those circumstances, yeah, it's not hard to hack a lot of the stuff, depending on what your language skills are. And as you know, later in regular school programming and everything, computer language was turned into another language altogether. And I totally agree with that. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. There is so many computer languages out there. You've got SQL, you've got MySQL, you've got the programming languages that iPhones use that's just totally different than the iOS of what they use. Then you have Java, you have DOS, you have C++, you have a lot of what I call mid scripts, which you have to merge. Python is one of those. You've got to merge the Python scripts with some other stuff to get what you're wanting, depending on what you're doing when it comes to, like, say, video games or animation or different things of that nature. Used to be a long time ago, Flash was the only thing you had. And so Flash went into JavaScript. And so from JavaScript is so powerful and so remote and wide expanding that there are people that only deal with JavaScript and make a ton of money doing it, because if they know that, they're good to go. And worst case scenario that I've seen over and over and over is people were like, well, I don't know where to learn it. There is so many free classes online. You just have to Google. I mean, come on. If you're really that desperate and you don't know how to do it, it's called type in free class computer language into the search bar. Trust me, you'll get a list about 15 miles long.
No, absolutely. But before we go to another subject, I would love to have my PlayStation hacked. And like, why do you want to play games from 15, 20 years ago? Because it reminds me of a better time.
Hacks, and a lot of them are available everywhere. I've got, like, I had a friend, and this was close to 10 years ago. Okay, this is when the PlayStation 3 first came out, and he had PlayStation 3, Sega Dreamcast, The first DS, the first Xbox, and a few Atari games and Nintendo games, all on his computer with nothing connected. That means none of the software or hardware was going into it. And I was like sitting there going, okay, how did you download the disc? He was like, I got a disc burner. I was like, you got past their encryption? And he was like, yeah, it wasn't hard. I was like, oh, jeez. I do not want to be you when the feds come calling.
Yeah, actually,
So,
that
yeah,
is really funny.
there's a lot to it that a lot of people don't know when it comes to coding. But they've got certain protections on their disks and such. But when it comes to downloads, that's where the real sort of like coding and encryption comes in. So
Well,
you can try and download it and this, that, and the other, but there's some hacks I refuse to talk about that are quite illegal that a lot of pirates use.
No, absolutely. And it's funny because there's actually websites right now, like pirate.com. And what about Napster? Napster was a big download.
Yeah, Napster's a mean one. And I will say this much too. I've made the mistake one time by accidentally going into the dark web. And I was like sitting there going, wait, what is this? I was like, and I saw some things that were for sale that I was like, I better get out of here. Luckily enough, I was enough of a hacker to not leave a trace. But geez, some of the stuff I know and seen, whoo, yeah, you got to be careful.
No, absolutely. Now, the next question I was going to ask you is what motivated you to be a book author, and how many books have you read?
Okay, first, yeah, I will say this much. My first inclination of writing was in typing class, and I was bored. Because I was typing, as a kid, I was typing 60 to 70 words a minute. And that's as a kid. And there was only one guy in the entire class that could beat me. So when the teacher would hand out what the homework was and all this other stuff, I'd get done with it. And I'm spending the rest of the time, about an hour almost, being bored. So what I did was I started writing, because there again, my imagination was through the roof. And so I started just making up stories. And one story sort of caught on. And because I went through it that entire year, and I started at the very first month of the class doing it because I was bored. And it caught on. The more I wrote, the more my imagination grew. And it ended up being a story that people started grabbing pages of, reading it and passing it around school. And I kept catching people going, have you got page 46? I was like, wait, what? That's fine. And it took me the rest of the last month to get all the pages back. And so by the time I was done, it was almost 400 pages. And so my teacher grabbed hold of about 4 chapters of it and read it. And she was like, this needs to be published. And I was like, but there's no money in publishing. There's no money in book writing. Yeah, the naivety of the young. But I didn't know at the time, my cousin worked for LA Times. And so I went through the entire rest of my life just dreaming of what I should be. But in the same instance, I caught on to what I could do, because I was very, very, a very big extrovert. And I'll just put it that way, like we're talking on steroids. I needed that assurance by other people and that reflection of other people. And I didn't know that I was a born actor and storyteller. I never knew that. And it took a lot of encouragement by a lot of people to try and get me out of my shell. And the more that I acted in drama and the more I acted in doing music, and the more I sang and the more I was on stage, the more addicted it was. And from there, I was doing everything from singing in, in group oriented areas to being soloist in a lot of other dramatic settings. And I was the main, I'll put it this way, I was the main stage in a couple of places where I was like, do they really want me here? Dancing on a podium close to 10 feet in the air was not my idea of fun at that point. But yeah, I've done it, and it was astounding. I've got recognized for it. I got recognized for a lot of stuff that I did that I was like, okay, that was fun. But I never thought of it as money making, because in my history, a job was somebody who paid you, not something you went and created on your own. And when I got done with the surgery and all the other stuff, I found out very quickly that business ownership was something that was attainable. Not only it's attainable, but sustainable. And a lot of people don't know that, and they don't look at it from that standpoint. From me becoming a manager of a restaurant 5 times, I learned very quickly how marketing works. And now that I'm a book writer, it has excelled me to areas that I would never imagine. And most book writers don't know marketing, and that's where they fail.
Hey, if you want to ghostwrite my book with me, I would really appreciate that.
I am coaching 2 people right now on writing. So yeah, I totally am able to do it. I'm helping one girl get fully published. So, and a lot of people ask me why I'm not fully published, because it's something that they don't know about. Let me be perfectly honest and clear about this, okay? A writer is a writer no matter what level. A article writer for a newspaper or an e-zine, which I've done before for close to 13 years, is not a published author, but he is still a writer and an author, if you want to put it in that category, because what he puts out there it's still entertainment to a certain degree, because it may be that there again, news is a necessity, but it's also entertainment in a lot of forms and fashions, whether it's sports, music, or otherwise. We have to not only correlate the words to inform the public, but we have to make it to where it's not going to bore the public either, and it still has to pass by the editor. And we're not even going to go there. Because a newspaper editor is one that really likes to pull the screws. But needless to say, a lot of people don't know the entire requirements that it takes to not only get into a publishing house, but to not be supported by the publishing house themselves, because the publishing house is there to make money. That's their entire thing. So if you've got a following like I do, they're going to be more prone to get somebody like me than, say, some amateur off the street. And yes, the writing may be phenomenal. The plot may be exceptional, but that's not going to sort of pull their strings to say that's who they want. They want to make money. They want a guaranteed sale of some sort. So the plot has to work. The writing has to work. It has to be a topic that they could possibly push. So you have to research not only the publishing house, but the agent that is going to support you while in that setting. And you're going to have to find editors that are also going to write your style of writing and match your pros and cons to that whole writing phenomenon we want to call published author. It's a very, very strict, very tight line. And a lot of people don't want to do it. A lot of people like me already have a following. So we use that following to say, you know what? I can go independent. I can still make money, And I like meeting the fans in a less crowded area with less competition than what a publishing house is going to have, because a publishing house is going to push their top 5 candidates. That's just what they do. If say it's something like Penguin House. Penguin House has a lot of smaller houses out there, but they all focus on certain titles and certain authors. So if you're like, say, somebody like J.K. Rowling, yes, you're going to be pushed, but her first 5 books weren't. And there's a reason for that. Was she a published author? Yes. Does it matter? Not on your life. Why? Because a film crew or film personality got a hold of that book and said that would be a great movie. Bingo. Done. Same thing happened to Aragon, but Aragon already had a following. They just wanted to follow it up and make it more dramatic. But the problem is they didn't keep up with the author themselves, sort of threw a lot of mishmash into the whole plot and killed the entire drive he had for even going that direction anymore. So, you know, it's a very tight line in that. And I think a lot of people don't know it. They don't realize it. There's contracts that you have to look at of what is still available to you as the writer and what the publisher is going to have a hold of. That first check you get may or may not be a loan. And the problem with that is that means you have to sell so many copies of that book to fulfill that amount of money that they're giving you for that book, or there's a possibility of you paying it back. And yes, there are publishers out there like that. It's a very complex situation that not many people know about.
No, absolutely. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you about social media and if that helps you, makes you, or break you.
Michelle Doherty.
Hey, I'm Laura Menino.
Hi, I'm Deborah Jensen.
I'm Linda Collins.
Hi, I'm Marissa Joy Davis.
This is Michelle Wong.
I'm Nancy Rose.
My name is Brandy Hunt. And
hello, my name is Raven Wynn.
Hi there, my name is Giovanna Vidal.
Hi, I'm Monica Thomas.
Hi, I'm Paisley Blackburn.
I'm Ashley Burgess.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Abney.
Hi, I'm Sharon Spank.
Hey, this is Samantha Moore.
Hi, I'm Melody Jones.
Hi, my name is Becky Yee.
Hi, you're watching the Keith Andrew Network.
Interpretations and their opinions being, you know, somewhat either non-validated or rebuffed. And I'm like, get over it. This is life. Everybody's got a different opinion. If it doesn't match somebody, then either find a way to combat it or get over it. There is no other option. You can't just sit here and submit yourself to everybody else's opinion and not have one for yourself. That doesn't make sense. This life is too short for that. Not only that, I refuse to bow down to anybody. I don't care. You can be a president or whatever. I'm not going to bow. One of the last times I was acting, I had a senator come in and you had everybody else in awe type scenario. He come up to me and goes, your performance was the best type scenario. I shook my hand. I was like, hey, thanks a lot. I have no idea who you are, but yeah, thanks. It was hilarious. Then another example of that is when I went to meet Henry Winkler. And I was, you know, there was very little people in line because of the way that the time limit and everything had gone. And I was there in line and he come walking around the table and I just shook his hand and I was like, my dad would love to have been there just to talk to you because he was an inspiration. And he literally just like, you just saw the pause for that one moment. And I was like, yeah, this handshake's from my dad. And, you know, it's one of those things. I'm one of those guys that I can't be intimidated anymore. I can't. The first time and the only time I was ever intimidated was when I started this whole traverse. I was at a Raleigh convention, and I was on the top layer of it where the first and second panels were. And that was where the big actors and big whatever actually performed. And I was just looking over there, and everybody was half my age or lower. And I'm like, why am I even here? And I was questioning about just leaving. And I'd only been there maybe 2 hours. And it's a 3-day convention. And a big arm comes wrapped around my shoulder and says, let's go walk the con together. And I'm looking up at Kyle Herbert. And he's the guy who I have to literally give credit for me actually continuing this. He drugged me around the con. Right now, we are probably really, really good friends because of the fact being of that. And it's amazing that, you know, I got to be friends with him. I got to be friends with Richard Epcar and Greg Hauser and Peter O'Connell, who both have coached me amazingly through this voice actor type whatever. And Chuck Huber actually not only befriended me, gave me a lot of confidence. And then above and beyond that, actually, I took his class not too long ago because I wanted to support him and I wanted to get more information. And he turned straight to me. He goes, David, you got $1 million voice. And I was like, this voice right here? And he was like, stop that. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you're a natural born storyteller. You talk and people listen. You got a crowd that surrounds you constantly because they want to hear what tales you tell. And I was like, well, that's because I'm an author. And he was like, no, when you talk, people listen and you need to take advantage of it. And there's e-learning, and he starts going on this whole list of things I could do, from narration to all this other stuff that I could possibly do. And I will say this much. I got some voiceover that I coach in the line of certain people. And they even tell me over and over, he's like, how many voices and accents have you got? I was like, I don't know. I just talk me. And they were like, what do you mean talk you? I was like, I can do this if I really want to. And it's my Cockney voice because I'm half Irish and have Scots. And then if you want my German, then I'll actually do that. Now what you're going to do when you're talking to somebody that's German, you know, it's all sorts of different characters that I come across because I'm an author. So I have to express those type of characteristics and those type of characters to make them come alive. And it's kind of an interesting setup, but I do it in acting. I do it in voice acting. I do it in my public speaking. And people find it hilarious a lot of times. But I still have that type of boyish attitude of, let's push this to the next level, shall we? And, you know, and it creeps out a few of my students that I coach because they're like, that voice is so creepy. I was like, one of these days I'm going to get a video game and they're going to actually want me to be the main voice of that villain just because I can. And, you know, it's just unique to me that I can, you know, sort of do that. I want to do the boyish charm of a sort of manipulative character in some of my stories because I've got one of And We Were Gods, and Loki is just that maniacal. And, you know, I read that in that voice. And so, you know, whether it's, you know, somebody like Odin or somebody like, say somebody like Zeus, you know, I'm going to change it up depending. And me doing somebody like Hercule or Thor, then you got the boyish attitude of, I'm going to be a hero. And, you know, it all changes and all the dynamics and the accents all change to fit that. And in writing, it's phenomenal. Why? Because you have to identify that character based off of that. And it's how I created my first book. I wanted that boy to become a man. And that boy becoming a man meant that he was going to have to go through a lot of hardships, a lot of pain, and he would have to learn how to endure inside of life itself. And so I loved it for that. And I hate to say it, everybody said I should write horror just because of it. But to me, that was a young adult book. And I was like, why should I write horror? And they were like, you gave a magical ability to a spider. I was like, so did J.K. Rowling. You gave a magical ability to a centipede. Oh, well, that's just fun.
Well, let me ask you this. What's the last 4 minutes left of the show? Yeah, you are a professional voiceover actor. Are you a diehard fan of Dragon Ball Z?
I like certain parts of Dragon Ball because here's the thing. I'm fans and friends with all of them. I think I know most of them, if not all of them, personally. So it's like,
who do you know?
Chuck Huber, Kyle Herbert. Geez, the list is endless. I know approximately over 80% of all Funimation, personally. So, and I went up to, I went up to, what's his name? McNamara. And I introduced myself, and he was like, oh no. I went up to Laura Lunda, and she was doing one convention I was at when I was a guest. And me and Todd Habercorn were hanging out. And it was one of those things of, she knew the name. And when you know the name, and Jason Todd was right across, and he was like, everybody knows you. I was like, oh, you hush. One of those things that, I can't, try and introduce myself anymore because they all know about me or know of me. And so it gets kind of interesting. The guy who plays Rufio in Hook, I can't even think of his name, and that makes me upset now. It was on the tip of my tongue. And I'm literally seeing his face in my head, and now I'm going to be upset. Donnie Brasco. Yeah, Donnie Brasco. I come by, and I was at a convention where he was. And I went to say, hey, Danny, I know that we haven't met before. He was like sitting there going, David. And I was like, wait, what? He looks like starts naming off every convention we've been to together. And I was like, what the crap? And so, yeah, when you get into that situation, it gets kind of odd.
No, I mean, I agree with you. And, I met recently at Comic-Con Sean Schemmel. He was really cool.
Yep, know him very well.
Hey, if you can put a good word in for me, I appreciate that. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Chris Sabbath.
Oh, yeah, know him all too well, too.
And actually, we did a funny interview, but he told me to take it down because, Funimation. He did a lot of impressions on Kyle Herbert.
Oh, yes, he will.
Because I asked, I'm going to ask you about racism, but I want you to do it in Pycon's voice. I was like, can you do another request? Can you do it as South Kai? Can you do it as Gohan? And that was really fun. And he's like, yeah, I need you to take that down because
because there again, it's the copyright issue. And trust me, I know it all too well because me and Kyle, we had to be careful one time because me and Kyle were at the back of one of the conventions. And I was like, hey, Kyle, what are you doing back here? Nobody's hassling you or like surrounding you. And he was like, oh, I haven't had my first panel yet, so nobody knows who I am. I was like, I know, right? And so we started talking, and I was like, you know what we were doing while we were coming down here? He's like, what was that? I was like, we were doing Dragon Ball Z in every Disney voice. And he was like, wait, what? And I started going, hey, Mickey, I'm going fight off Dark Goku. And it went ballistic. And so he started joining in. So he was like, going to die again. Oh, man, it was bad. So we had Goku as Krillin. We had Goofy as, Oh, geez, it was a nut job. We had Mickey Mouse as Goku. We ended up with like Scooby Doo as daggone freaking Gohan, and it was nuts. But yeah, we did an absolute atrocious thing, and we started getting a crowd because of it, and so it was great.
Well, I do have a couple questions for you off the air about wrapping up. How can people follow you on social media? And when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your honest first reaction? What made you say yes? And how do you feel now? And would you recommend it to all your friends?
Okay, first and foremost, if you want to find me, David Adkins, author on Facebook. That's the easiest way to find me. Like, seriously. Other than that, I would say I'm on, Sons of Solar Star for Instagram, and we were gods on WordPress, and a lot of other stuff. Like, every single one of my books has a connection to where I'm at and located. But yeah, other than that, when you came and approached me, I was actually honored, but I get requests quite often. And I mean, when I saw, what you have done and everything associated, dude, I am above and beyond proud of you, because a lot of people don't take that initiative. They see their limitations more than their opportunities. And it just irks me to the core, because if you're able to breathe, you're able to function. If you're able to function, you can actually do something. So stop being negative. Be positive. Not only be positive, but be proactive in your own life. And it's one thing to say you're proactive in, agendas or politicals or this, that, and the other. Be proactive towards yourself. I mean, seriously. Because you only have one life, and if you don't live it to the extreme, you're definitely going to regret it later.
No,
but
absolutely.
I totally, dude, you are the epitome of what every podcaster and every person should try and achieve. Seriously. Because right now you're taking full advantage of everything you were given. And I totally applaud you for that.
No, I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road. But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road.
Oh, totally. I totally appreciate it. Dude, you've got me as a fan. Seriously.